Just watch that program.
You're on.
Okay. Well, good evening. I'd like to call to order the Georgetown School Committee Thursday, March 14th, 2013 meeting. First on the agenda is consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, public hearing minutes, 3/7/13, March 7th, 2013. We have regular session minutes, March 7th, 2013. We have acceptance of warrants, 3/7/5/13, 3/6/P13. And so, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for public hearing minutes 3/7/13?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
And do I hear a motion to approve the regular session minutes of, is that three regular session minutes of 3/7/13?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes. And then acceptance of warrants, 3/7/5/13 and 3/6/P13. Do I hear a motion to accept those warrants?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, communications? I don't think there is any communications. Okay. And right on cue,
Hi.
Cole.
Good
How you doing? It's only been a week since I saw you, but I feel like a lot's happened. I know everyone's getting used to the time change at school, which I definitely had to get used to. And but we also had the NHS induction ceremony, which was great. It was a great ceremony. So many students were accepted. It was great.
Yeah.
Very, very talented. And it was good.
That's the National Honor Society, NHS.
Yes.
Is it just seniors who are inducted, or juniors?
No, it's juniors and seniors can be inducted.
There were 29 new people, and actually in your next packet, I am including the brochure for the evening, or the program for the evening.
Oh,
And you
okay.
can get a little more information on exactly who was inducted.
Hmm. And then spring sports start next week, next Monday. So I will be doing track. Unfortunately, there's no co-op with Ipswich anymore. Only people who had run previously can be part of that. So we're gonna have to find a new co-op. It's just a change in the is it MIAA?
MIAA.
Yeah. So I mean, you just take it as is. So.
So what does that mean? You have to find another school to join?
Mhm.
Well, that would be
Co-op?
one option, right? If
Yeah.
there's another school that doesn't have enough kids to run a program.
Exactly, because since Ipswich is able to,
Right.
run a program without us, we're not allowed to join the co-op anymore. They just changed the ruling in that because they thought that was unfair. It's just giving them an advantage. But so we're gonna have to find another school that doesn't have enough kids on their own to sustain themselves, and which is I think we'd be able to find some because
So,
yeah.
I hope you can.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens if they don't find, if you don't
We
find
just
a
can't run
school?
the program.
You can't run the track program, is
Yeah.
that what it is?
I know we
Did
have
you
middle
say,
school
Cole,
track.
that are you still able
Yes,
to be
yeah.
grandfathered in? That was the same thing with golf when we couldn't have a co-op any longer for golf. Our golfers were still allowed to try out, but they had to make the team.
Sure.
But they were still, two of our seniors did
Yeah, and
remain
then
in
they
their
did
senior
very
year
well,
on the
too.
golf team.
Hmm.
So I think that's a transition that they.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
do,
it's
which
just a
is
transition phase, which is it's nice for me not to have to go to another school
Right.
away.
As a
So,
senior.
Yeah, as a senior too. So, no, I appreciate the leniency on that too.
Mm-hmm.
But I just hope that the incoming freshmen and following years can actually find a co-op because it's a great sport. I really like doing track.
It's a great sport.
So
What events do you do?
I do the 400 hurdles and the 800. So.
Okay.
800, that's a tough race.
I know. I like it though. So and then all the other sports are starting up, which is it's going to be interesting. I like lacrosse, all the other sports and everything that go along with that. And I know baseball. I know they lost a lot of people last year, but
And some seniors they lost.
I know. So
It's okay. They're excited to be coming back as state champs.
Rebuilding.
Yes.
Yeah.
yep.
Maybe I shouldn't say
All right.
that. Okay, well, thank you
You're welcome.
very much. Let's see. Audience, is there anyone in the audience with public comment? What was that? Oh, okay.
They agree with everything. Right.
Let's see. Administrative reports.
Yes, I want to just add one little thing. I mentioned it in the last set of orange notes, but she wasn't here. So I want to recognize Donna Straight in earning her doctorate degree, which is no
right.
small feat. So we now have Dr. Straight. So it's a great
cool.
accomplishment for her, and we're very proud to have her have that credential and be on our team. But I did mention it to them last time, Don. I was going to, and then you weren't at the meeting, so I didn't want to miss another meeting without acknowledging it. So congratulations to you. Okay, and then I guess we can move on now. We're up to school reports.
All right. So for school reports, we have up the middle school after-school program. Principal
Brian,
Gill.
come up.
Hi, Brian.
Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. Well, I'm sitting before you tonight hoping to get an approval for a proposal that we're presenting for an after-school enrichment program. Now, last year, we did a fairly extensive parent-student survey seeking input on programs that people would like to see after school. And we've been working on trying to develop a consensus on what teachers will be interested in, correlating with what they thought students would be interested in. So we came up with a proposal, and many thanks to Deb DeFrucio, who is a social studies teacher in the 7th grade. She was instrumental in developing this proposal. She does a great deal of work at the Pearly now.
She runs the Pearly.
She has an extensive experience, and she did a tremendous job pulling this together, so I want to thank her. And I can do one of two things. I can give you kind of a brief presentation. I know you have it in front of you, if that will be helpful to the audience at home. Or I can just answer questions or do both.
I think a brief presentation. How's the rest
Yes,
of the board
sure,
feel?
I'd love to, whatever you.
Sure, so just in summary, what we decided to do, we have a lot of things going on this spring, including the middle school play. And with so many kids are involved, we wanted to, be respectful of that and also not take from our own pot of kids, so we're waiting until after the play.
After, right.
So we're going to establish our first session ever from April 22nd to May 24th, if it's approved. And there'll be a course fee of $40 per student, and that covers a 5-week session. And we have several different things on the agenda, and I'll just run through the calendar real quickly. On Mondays, we'll have homework zone and yoga. Tuesdays will also be homework zone, and there'll be, Mr. Lapome will be pulling together students to create a Royal Review newspaper. And on Wednesday, we will have homework zone again, and Mrs. Dodge will be teaching A is for animation, which is creating different forms of animation using the Graphics Mac Lab. On Thursdays, they will have Recycle, Renew, and Create, which they will be taking discarded materials and trash and turning them into art.
It's very cost effective.
Right, recycle, renew, and create. And digital photography and Photoshop as well. And then on Fridays, we will continue the drama program with Miss Donovan. On page 2, we've also developed a registration form with a deadline for April 5th. And we're asking people to just write the checks out to the town of Georgetown for the middle school enrichment program. And they can be dropped off at the middle school office or at the main office. We are hoping to have a large crowd that remains with us until the summertime.
Sounds like a great opportunity.
So would you, so this is a pilot?
It's a pilot,
Right, so you'd
correct.
like to expand it? That's how we did it at the other the elementary schools. We started small, and then we,
There wouldn't be time for a second session, would there?
No.
From May to,
No.
yeah, I didn't think so.
no, that's why we thought one session, see
Yeah.
how it goes.
It should be a real good litmus test, because there's not a whole lot going on once the play winds down, so.
Okay.
And we didn't want to bury people with too many programs so that they were kind of sprinkled thin all the way around. We wanted to just do a test with the ones that seemed to be most popular.
Okay, great.
So if
It should be
that-
self-sustaining as well. I
Yes,
know.
yes. So would students have a chance to suggest after-school activities as things, not, obviously not for this pilot session, but going forward?
Yes, actually, that's how this was developed initially. We set up on the bulletin board out in front of the main hallway, a suggestion board.
Oh,
And students filled out, and
Excellent.
we wound up with 16 or 17 different ideas for after-school classes, and we did it based on sign-ups. Kids went and signed up,
Oh,
and
okay.
so that's how we determine the popularity of what will fly. But certainly they'd be involved. We'll continue to survey people and see if, there were a lot of great ideas that didn't make it the first round.
Yeah.
So we're gonna represent those and see if anyone comes up with anything else as well.
Right. Excellent.
That sounds like a great idea. I know my sister would love to do something like that, and she's in 6th grade,
Yeah.
so.
And maybe at some point you can also integrate like an intramural program in seasons when you don't have the demands on the gym.
Right.
Because I know the gym space is very limited. But, you know, there could be, and I mean, I see when the kids have a chance to play some of those, you know, volleyball and those kind of things. I mean, they tend to love to join that floor hockey, you know.
And that's a real trend now to keep especially middle school kids involved, because a lot of their programs, their sports programs are antiquated.
Right, right.
A lot of
Fitness and-
town programs and travel teams have taken over, and the cost is prohibitive to travel to 9 different middle schools in a year as well. So intramurals have the potential to really.
Yeah, that.
What's nice about intramurals is they draw students who don't necessarily go on the travel teams or,
That's right.
Right.
or the select
Right.
teams, and everybody
have
still
fun.
gets a chance to
They
play.
just like to play.
Right.
Yeah.
kids
They just like to play,
Just wanna have
you
fun.
know?
It's
Exactly.
fun.
I think it's great.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And outdoor fitness, I mean, there's a lot of options
Mm-hmm.
that could tie into our wellness policy and stuff. It's just important to get it started.
Exactly.
Yes.
We want to get the word out.
We did try, as I said in the orange notes, Nora Cannon put together, you know, a first draft. She called it the middle ground, which I thought was an excellent title. And, you know, I don't know what the reasons were, but we just weren't able to draw the interest. But we do have a lot of students who go to the library now, and I'd love to see those students maybe choose to participate in this program and, you know, be engaged and involved in this. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't think we should give up on it. I think the data is very clear that middle level students are the most at risk when they leave school for the day. There's, you know, because they're in that in between stage. So if we can make this work, I think it's a great idea.
And as a parent myself of 2 middle schoolers, I would love to see Homework Zone take off, because it takes so much of the stress level off at home.
I
You
was
don't have
gonna
a
say,
whole
yeah,
lot
I
of
think
time
that
when you get
homework zone
home
will be
between
very
dinner
helpful.
and showers and, you know, and then you're fighting over homework and,
And, you know, I
not
don't know
not
how
us,
many
but you know.
students are gonna wanna sign up for the homework zone, but I think maybe initially a lot of, you know,
Parents
parents,
might
including
want-
Well,
myself.
and you know, we
But-
thought
and then
about that.
It needs to be fun so that, you know, the
Right.
child will sign up and then.
And we
they'll say,
took that
"Oh,
into
this is
consideration. We didn't want the parents just signing the children up to say, yes, you're definitely going, because then it becomes a punishment, you know? We want it to be
Right,
fun and-
right,
and to make it interesting, you know?
Will there be a snack or something provided,
Yeah,
Brian?
that's what it says.
It does,
Say
yeah.
that? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I missed that part. Thank you.
And then hopefully the kids will get the idea they get home and their homework is all finished, and then they'll learn
Well, it's
to
a huge
enjoy
stress
that,
relief.
as opposed to, you know, putting it off and off and off until.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also good for parents too who maybe can't come until 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So the kids wait at school for their parents to pick them up. So, you know, they'd actually be able to do something instead of just sitting around and
Yeah, that's
waiting.
great.
And it's nice with the,
Totally.
not to focus on the homework zone, but to have qualified staff members working with the students who know the material and know the content and know the teaching strategies.
Yes.
It's much clearer, the message. It doesn't get confused as it sometimes can when we all sit home and say, I don't remember doing math this way, you know?
Right, right.
So, but a student on a Monday, for example, they would have to choose either to sign up for the homework zone or yoga? There's not
Right.
a way they can do both, right?
You know, I don't think so, because they're both at the same time. So they're
Right.
both 2:20 to 3:40.
Right.
I mean, if it takes off enough, I'm sure we could look at double
Well, that
sessions.
might, and that might be something to think about. You know, I know there are some after-school programs where everybody goes and does homework for the first 20 minutes.
Right.
And then they go to the activity, so they're not in a
Exactly.
position
makes
of
But-
choosing.
That's how a lot of the 21st century programs run.
Yes, that's where I'm getting my
Yeah.
information, because I'm more
But
familiar
this
with that.
homework zone, do you pick either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or is it's not all 3 days.
You could sign up for all
You
three.
could sign up
could
for all
sign
three
up.
if you like.
But so you could do yoga on Monday and homework zone on Tuesday.
That's right.
Certainly could. You can
And-
go every day if you wanted.
And it's
Or
it's $40 though, a
Or
class.
every
each,
day?
For each session, yeah. For each section,
For each
not
section,
session.
right.
So this little calendar, I think, is a little confusing. But, you know, when you just look at this,
Because it looks like
Without-
session 1 and 2.
yeah, it's, if you, so currently, because I get these for, you know, a Pembroke student, and I got them for Pearlie, she'd pick the one she wanted, I'd look at the date, I'd know it was on Thursday, I knew all of them were from 2:20 to 3:40 or whatever time it is there. And if if there was one on Monday that she wanted and one on Tuesday, she would say, I want to go to the one on Monday and the one on Tuesday. That, I just think this kind of makes that,
I think it's a little difficult to read.
yeah, that it, because you don't know.
Well, maybe you could look at the.
Yeah, because we haven't sent it out yet, so
Yeah.
certainly we
I
can
just-
revisit that before we send it out.
But what, I'm just trying to, so if I say I want my child to go for this session 1, this April 26th to May 25th, and I want them to go on Monday. So I would plan on them going every Monday for 5 weeks, and it would cost me $40.
Correct.
And if they go 3 out of the 5 weeks, it's still $40.
Still costs you $40,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
And I guess with the homework zone, you could sign up for Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or sign up for all three, but you pay for, yeah.
Yeah, so you pay for each block as a separate
Yeah.
payment.
Now, what is the reason that there's no homework zone on Thursday? Just based purely on scheduling? And
Probably, yeah, I
Okay.
didn't really ask that question, so I was happy it was 3 days a week.
Maybe there's just not, since there's not enough
Yeah.
students would sign up, or.
But it could just
It's a
be
pilot.
Yeah, the activities, maybe someone's not available to do them on
That's
Fridays.
maybe it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's what I was
possible.
thinking.
Well, I can imagine also students might want to choose the date. Are these teachers at the middle school now, so
Yes.
students know them?
Yes.
They might want to know which date, like if one of them is teaching on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, they
I
might
want to know the teacher.
they'll want to
Yeah.
know who the teacher is, right?
For
The only
homework
one who's
zone,
not
you mean?
is the yoga instructor, is not
Yeah.
a middle
Right,
school teacher.
but I'm assuming one of these instructors is doing the Monday
Oh,
homework
I
zone,
see
one
what
of
you're
them's
doing,
doing
yeah.
Tuesday, and one of them's doing Wednesday.
I
And
don't know.
my middle school self probably would have said,
I'll pick this one.
I want
Which
this teacher, what
Yeah,
day?
Yeah.
And then I
That's a
probably
good
would have
point.
gone to the
You can
teacher
ask
and
that.
said, what day are you doing that?
Yeah, I'll follow up with that.
Okay, great question.
And
The principal might just switch them and rotate them just to throw everybody.
just to throw everybody off, you just might. Is there no journalism program at the middle school right now or the high school? Is there a journalism program?
No,
Do we have a journalism?
Not at the middle
program?
school.
Well, we have a
We-
high
We have
school.
we have a journalism class.
Uh-huh.
We do it a little differently than most high schools. We do it as part of a class. So our school newspaper is produced by the class.
Okay.
Blueprint.
I just thought, wow, 5 weeks you're gonna produce a newspaper. It's
I
awesome.
know. And Justin Lapomi, I have complete faith in him.
Awesome.
He's a worker bee and he's excellent, so I have no doubt he'll pull something great off with that.
Okay, so, do we have a motion to approve the middle school enrichment program as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank
I will keep you updated once we get rolling.
All right, that
Great.
sounds great.
Have fun.
Next up, let's see, Dr. Tana Straight.
The Don Street, yeah?
Does that sound good?
After 4 years of hard work.
First time I saw it in writing, I was like, wow. Well, it's nice to be here. I wanted to come and just kind of talk about the extended school year. An extended school year is for students with special education who have individual education plans, although not for all students. It's for those students who will have substantial regression with regard to the goals that they have in their individual education plans. So it's really a small subset of those students that we have in special education. So it's going to run a little bit differently this year, so I wanted to come and share it. Some of the things that are going to be similar are the times and dates and length of it. So it'll run for 6 weeks in the summer. Most of the programs will run Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 3 hours. The instructional programs will run for Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the students that have very specific reading programs that they'll have substantial regression or other types of remedial programs like that will be scheduled into those programs so that we can continue to meet those students' needs, as well as some occasional therapeutic programs that a student might need, speech and language, OT, PT, something like that. So we're going to look at addressing those needs as well. So in the programs that we're going to have, we're looking at several preschool programs. One is considered a preschool program where we're having the young students come who are ages 3 to about 5 years old. We're looking at integrating some typically developing peers or children that are their age that the parents might decide that they'd like to have them come and integrate with those students during the 3 days of the summer school for the 6 weeks. There's an intensive program as well that's being offered, and that's for students that have significant needs that need a lot of discrete trials or other types of activities, a lot of therapeutic services that wouldn't necessarily have those same age peers integrated within them. Additionally, and this would be at all 3 levels, we have what is going to be the social pragmatics program, and that's for those students that might be on the autism spectrum disorder, have some developmental delays, but have some needs for applied behavior analysis and other areas that we need to keep those programs going for them. That'll be at all 3 levels, as well as the therapy program for those students and the instructional skills as well. It'll take place in 2 of the schools. Pearlie will house the pre-K students through the grade 5 students, and then the middle high school will have the middle high school students. So if you take a look in working this out and looking at the staffing requirements, which I worked with Kim Leonard and Eileen Lee, who are the special education coordinators for the secondary and elementary levels. If you look at the second sheet with the larger print, that is really the one on the back is the one that you want to look at on the third sheet. So in looking at the 2 programs, what we're going to need overall is a director, and that director will effectively be in charge in ensuring that the programs are running smoothly, that the teachers are all there if we need substitutes, that the curriculum is appropriate, generally overseeing the entire program at the 2 schools. We're looking at physical therapists, CODAs, nurses, speech and language pathologists, to keep up those types of therapies. As well as you can see the breakdown of what our estimated staffing needs are with regard to the types of teachers that we're going to need, as well as the types of tutors and program aides to meet the students' needs. And again, I just want to emphasize that this is an estimated cost because, as you know very well, with special education, it's a day-to-day process as to who we have in district, what the students' needs are, and what the costs might be associated with that. Another piece to note is the parent tuition. We're anticipating having approximately 19 students at the elementary level whose parents will tuition them in to be part of that program. And that would be a revenue which would be applied toward the cost of the summer school for those students. There's materials that we'll need as well as transportation. So you can see what the estimated total cost will be on this sheet.
Funding source, Donna?
Pardon me?
Funding source?
The funding source is through the IDEA grant. We're looking at funding the program.
So there's no budget impact to this?
Correct.
How long does that grant last for?
Oh, wait, we get it every year.
Every year
It's a federal entitlement grant. So it's based on a formula.
Okay.
And it's enough to cover this cost, this projected cost?
More than enough.
Okay, great. That's great.
So we utilize that grant for a variety of services that are required by students over the course of the year. One of them is the extended school year program that we're looking
So
at.
it just applies to services in special ed throughout the school year. That's
Yeah,
great.
when we talked about the Medicaid, the improvements we made to the Medicaid. This is one of the grants where remember we said that we removed something from the grant that didn't qualify and didn't make us Medicaid eligible. So this is an example of, that's
Okay.
the grant that we did that with.
What is the position, CODA?
A CODA is part of an occupational therapist where they come in and do fine motor skills with students.
They're not fully, they're certified, but they're not a full
What does it stand
occupational
for? COTA.
Certified Occupational Therapist Assistant.
Assistant, got it.
And
So-
a physical therapist where it's similar to the gross motor activities.
So for those parents who want to tuition their children in, those 19 children, what would the day look like for those children, those students?
Well, it would look like a typical preschool program right now. The way the preschool is running, we have students who are tuitioned in as well, and they run through the typical preschool program. So there's going to be play activities, there's going to be some academics, there's going to be some songs and art and music and all the typical things that you would see in a child's preschool.
Okay.
And those children, if they needed discrete, oh, no, not those, the special ed children would still get their discrete trials and their special therapies.
Right,
But
right.
it would be just really like our Pearly classrooms right
It
now.
would
Mm-hmm.
be essentially like a preschool in the summer.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
So
good.
it's a nice opportunity to extend that for children to kind of keep them going with their peers that they're with now, and for parents to have a place to bring their kids so that they have that fun time.
Right.
I do anticipate that there may be a few parents that might wonder why the Pembroke kids are coming to Pearly and why the Pembroke kids aren't at Pembroke. So maybe you could speak to that, because I do think there may be some questions about that.
Okay, sure. And looking at what the needs of the students were, we decided that they would be most effectively met if we kept the students together in one elementary level, where we could provide the students with their explicit instruction that they're needed, keeping all of their specialists and all the services right there. So the idea behind it was to keep the children together and ensure that they're receiving those very specific instruction that they need.
And also, wasn't there some advantage to maximizing the resources?
Well,
Like-
there is, exactly. Keeping everybody in the same building is maximizing the resources. So you're looking at the speech and language, the nurse, the CODA, the physical therapist. They're all under one roof. They're all together. So
So that allows you to provide a more highly targeted, highly kind of customized to the student's particular individual needs.
and
Is that
cost
right?
effective,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Yep, all of those pieces.
Yes.
Exactly.
As far as temperature is concerned, how does that building work in the summer?
Well, we have had, in one of the rooms at least, we have an air conditioner, right, Margaret? Yeah, it's a portable air conditioner. But would you say that we're only gonna, how many classrooms are we gonna need down at 3, right?
Do you have what you need?
3 for the younger students and so 4 altogether.
4 altogether. So the question is, obviously the summer can be hot and we don't know what the summer's gonna bring. But are we worried at all about the temperature?
We live in New England, typically in the morning it's cool. Children will come in, and those classrooms are, it's gonna get hot later on in the day, but children are coming at 8:30 in the morning, so I would imagine it's going to be relatively cool, and then they leave by 11:30.
Actually, yeah, I would imagine Pearly might be a little cooler than Pembroke, just given the roof situation.
Maybe. We definitely would run fans and all that. Donna, was there an issue last year other than, there were certain students who needed to be, because of their IEPs and their health issues, they needed to be in an air-conditioned room. And so those students had
We
a,
modified for that. We ensured that they had that environment that they needed for their safety.
but
so
there
we're
were
conscious
other,
of that.
there were other groups that were meeting though in other classrooms that did not have air conditioning, right? Was there a problem? Yeah, I think it's gonna be okay, because it is mornings only, it's not a full day program. And then obviously, you can do things like go outside, take the water table, and, I'm sure they would do some.
Fans.
Yeah.
And we specifically picked the 8:30 to 11:30 in consideration of the heat of the day.
I've been in Pembroke when it's just been stultifying. Absolutely. And this is in May. And I don't recall that experience in Pearly. So hopefully it'll
Let's hope
be.
it's a cool summer.
It'll be
and that-
nice.
when the program's running, otherwise it
Yeah.
could be,
But I don't.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you. Let's see, so we have, for that motion, we have a motion, do I hear a motion to approve the extended school year programs as presented by Dr. Straight?
So moved.
Second, and any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
And now, we have the high school mid-year school improvement plan.
Hello, Peter.
Good evening.
Hello.
Joining you over here again.
Can you all get, I can move over.
Just gonna move on the
Are
other
you sure?
side.
Because you're gonna come over here?
That's fine,
Okay. All right. Is it thinking?
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to present my mid-year cycle.
Can you see, Peter?
Yeah.
It's a little darker than I thought. There you go. Thank you.
I'll briefly just go over the goals and where we are with them and what we're doing to ensure that we succeed in those goals, and then we'll look at our high needs subgroup. The first goal is to promote the integration of current technologies and enhance student learning through portable technologies. The major thrust there was changing our electronic device policy to allow
That's why.
smartphones for instructional use only in class at teachers' discretion. And we get a lot of positive feedback from students on that, and we also polled the teachers, and it looks like about 41% of the teachers have students use their smartphones at least once a week. And that's the good news. On the other side of that, about half of the teachers don't use that at all. So we hope to find more ways to motivate teachers to use them by sharing best practices and best ideas about how they can be used in a classroom setting. More good news as the teachers that are using them happen to be in the core academic areas. You have the highest use, so English, Math, Science, and Social Studies are catching on to this. And things to still do is that from a district perspective, we need to update our acceptable use policy, our internet acceptable use policy. We have a committee in the high school chaired by Liz Marchetti, who comes from Burlington High School, which is kind of a pioneer in technology in the state. So she has a lot of experience from there, and she's really crafted what I think is an excellent acceptable use policy. But we're waiting to present that to you because we want to integrate it closely with our new mission statement, and that's still in the works. So when that is done, a lot of things will start moving along. Because
So that's why I had it on the policy, the governance agenda. But I was obviously
Right.
ahead of the track. So
Well, I'm
when I thought I
glad.
was going crazy, like I couldn't remember why I put it on there, I said to Peter, am I like going crazy? Did I forget something? And he alerted me that, no, well, we were getting to the age where we might be slipping, that there was a logistical reason why I did it. And we're just not ready to do more with it yet.
And I believe they had some issues in Burlington, so I'm glad we've waited and we're going to learn from their experience and take the time to do it all
Yeah.
right.
the second goal is to improve student performance on writing and open response questions. This goal is generated from data, so we're always looking at our MCAS data, and our greatest area of need in MCAS is our open response questions. And we had a full day workshop. I think it was the first PD day we used. trainer came in, and Julie DeRoche spent a lot of time with the staff and worked on all kinds of open response questions and strategies, and she created a guide for teachers on various types and how to use them. And we're doing this collaboratively at the department level, and through my classroom observations, I'm seeing some movement in this area. We won't know for sure until MCAS results come out and see how we do, and that will be probably our earliest results in the summer. So, but all indications right now look like we're moving in the right direction for improvement in those areas. The third goal was to provide common strategies and language across the curriculum to support language-based learners and deepen reading capacity. We did some summer training for special educators, and we actually started this last year when we had some people from Landmark come in and work with our standard level teachers and our special educators. We dedicated 2 faculty meetings to provide language-based strategies to all high school teachers. Again, Landmark came in and did that. And through our supervision evaluation process, we see a lot of these strategies being employed in the classroom by high school teachers. And we're not going to stop there. There are future plans to, at the high school level, to further train grade 9 teachers, starting in grade 9 and then building up. But there are also plans to adopt some common strategies in learning, study skills strategies at the district level.
Can you define language-based learners? What does that mean?
That means that anybody that is having difficulty with the language, with reading and writing, and some people have specific disabilities and difficulties working in that way. And
Processing
Dr.
language.
Straight can help me even further. Probably.
That's effectively what it is. So they have difficulties with the pragmatic semantics of language. It could be the processing of it. So there's a variety of areas where the disabilities could occur. So what we like to do is take a look at how can we provide instruction and assessment to meet those varying needs, to sort of provide that scaffolding piece.
So in other words, the term,
it,
it means that they have some kind of a language-based disability?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Master.
Learning difference,
Or different?
you know, but there's a lot of highly specific strategies
Yes.
involved in language-based learning.
It could be,
for
it could
teachers
be
to use.
processing. They, you know, it could be how do they take information orally and be able to take notes. So you might teach them 2-column notes, a very simple note taking thing. So that's what Pam's saying is you can teach whatever, when you know what the gap is, you can teach a
directly
specific
into
strategy.
A specific strategy to that gap. Okay. Yeah, because that's just that term, language-based learners, aren't we all language?
Well, yeah, and I think there are a lot of students who don't have IEPs necessarily, or don't qualify for IEPs,
Right.
that still have language-based challenges.
Absolutely.
Sure, they can access the general curriculum and make effective
Right.
progress. They don't need any specially designed instruction necessarily. What Peter's talking about is those students that, for whatever reason,
Their
have
challenges
trouble.
come from the
That's right.
language.
That's
Okay.
right.
And they can benefit from these
And the
strategies.
whole idea of this is to give this to all students.
Absolutely.
So
Right.
the kids that need it the most aren't just getting it when it's time for their services, that they're getting it all the time by all their teachers.
And reinforced. Yeah.
That's fabulous. Because it's probably beneficial, like you
And-
said, to far more students than we would identify
right.
as needing.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Fabulous. Okay.
Exactly.
The last goal was to infuse a variety of formative assessment techniques in the instructional repertoire of teachers. We, at the high school and throughout the district, firmly and strongly believe that assessment drives instruction. So we're really working closely with our teachers to give them a greater repertoire to reach students in various ways, so they can alter their instruction when they find out on the go that what they're doing isn't getting, they're not getting the most bang for the buck. So we had a full day workshop. Actually, we had 1.5. The first workshop didn't go over like we hoped it would go over. I think there was a disconnect between what we wanted and what the provider gave us. So we brought her back, and we clarified that, brought her back for a half a day, and it went very, very well. And I see a lot of these different strategies being incorporated now, and we think this is going to really pay great dividends in student learning. That brings us to our high need subgroup. Data analysis shows our greatest areas of need are in mathematics, and once again, the areas of open response and number sense. So the math department are using lots of strategies to tackle this. On long blocks, time is being used to work on open response questions and strategies in particular. Teachers are working on numerous number sense drills, word problems, and strategies on how to approach these questions. And there are special extra help sessions being given after school to identify first-time MCAS takers and students on EPPs. That's an educational proficiency plan. So for students that don't score, you have to be proficient in math and English to graduate. And for students who take the MCAS at the sophomore year and don't reach proficiency on that test, then they're put on what we call an EPP, an educational proficiency plan. And we tutor them, we do lots of things. We identify strategies in the classes to try to get them to achieve proficiency on proficiency tests that are given periodically. If they don't do that, they're still on a path to show improvement in this area by completing and passing grade 11 and 12 English and math classes. And if they do that, then they satisfy the state's proficiency requirement. So, but we want to get them off those plans as soon as we can, so we require them to take the test, and we help them with that. Also, based on item analysis in ELA math and science, we're focusing with this group in the Learning Center. We provide direct small group instruction in MCAS prep strategies. We also provide small group instruction in long composition and open response when we write in the Learning Center. We provide one-to-one tutoring for MCAS support, and then there's a grant that allows us to do academic tutoring for students that we identify in need who score warning and needs improvement in ELA, math, and science. And that's it.
Okay. Brian, the lights. Ooh, it's really dark in here.
I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for you, Carol, but is there anything in the program for the advisors, the counselors who for continuing education, in addition to just the teachers? I know all the teachers, and I see what goes on with continuing ed.
Oh, you mean for like professional development for the counselors in that group?
Yeah, do they fall into that too?
Yeah, I mean, on professional development days,
Yeah.
they
Are
have.
they considered a teacher every time I hear teacher? and
Contractually they are, but with the new educator evaluation system, they're actually going to have their own
Yep.
different rubric.
Yeah, that's been a real gap for years in the process.
Yeah.
Because, it's hard to evaluate a nurse or a therapist using the standards
But they
that
do
an
get
academic
their
teacher.
own professional
But they
development.
will.
That's your question.
Yes.
Yeah, they tend to,
different, too.
on professional development days, they tend to pool of resources and work on things like curriculum for kids. They get their own professional development a lot. There's all kinds of conferences that they're always going to and stuff like that. They recently, the last about year and a half, we've really been focusing, our high school counselors going to get training in the Naviance program. And
And what is
What's the
that?
Naviance?
Naviance is a program that a lot of high schools use. It's really geared for guidance counselors, and there's different components of it. There's career inventory component. There's It's like a database for all of the colleges that they apply. It helps them with the college process. There's all kinds of college information and stuff. Maybe have you used yours account?
Yeah. What it basically just helps us organize which colleges we go to in a list, and it helps facilitate the guidance department with, like, if we had done our Common App, like what we need from them would go through Naviance to the Common App, so they would put everything on Naviance, and it just works really well with the system that we have, because when we use Common App, we get to apply to all of our colleges. I mean, most of the colleges are on there. So
Does it
it's
help
just-
you narrow? Like,
right.
could you say, like, I want to be no more than 3 hours away from home, I want to play golf, and I want to be in a school that's medium sized?
yeah, no,
I mean, does it help sort that and say, okay,
It really
these kind of
does.
schools meet your needs? That's what I thought Naviance did. That's why I
Yeah.
thought it was helpful.
It does. It helps. I mean, not only does it gives the guidance, like a way of connecting to all of their students, it also lets the students search colleges.
Yeah,
So
that's what
I
I
mean,
thought.
it's a good engine for that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's
So
huge.
Is that a software program?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The GEF
Web-based.
actually awarded the school a grant initially, but the GEF grants are for 1 year, and there's one condition that they have to be sustainable. So when they don't want to fund something that's going to be a 1 year only, and we made a commitment to the GEF that we would pick it up and assume it as an annual expense in the budget, because we felt like it was going to really assist the students and the guidance counselors. That was the one thing I heard when I came here. The guidance process is too difficult. Parents were very dissatisfied. A lot of students had trouble. And when, we had the opportunity to get the Naviance, I don't hear those things anymore. So I do think it's been a benefit.
Yeah. You can also search for scholarships through that as well. Like I know Mrs. Robinson and Mr. Umbro put just scholarship lists on there, and I mean, it's just a great way of getting the students to know the information that they need, and also for the students just themselves to get the information that they need. So
It's going to allow us to track the progress of our graduates also.
Right.
That's great.
Oh.
But what about training? I mean, that's I know that the majority of students, I believe, in Georgetown are students who will take advantage of that ability of the guidance counselors. But I wonder about students who aren't seeking college or aren't actively participating in all the experiences that the high school has to offer. And are the guidance counselors, is there an awareness of who these students are and how to reach out to them? And if there are students, I only imagine, who might feel like, I don't fit in here, I'm having a really bad time at this school, I hate this school, everybody hates me, I don't belong to any of these groups. Like, what resources, what does the school do to identify, reach out to, work with those students?
Well, that's a long answer, but I'll try to. First, we'll start with identification. We do a thing which is called the STAR chart, and we have all of the students' names available to all the teachers, and teachers come by and put a star next to their name if they know them well enough that they feel that they could write a college recommendation for. And it's not to write a college recommendation, it's just an indicator of how well you know someone.
Okay.
And most kids have lots of stars. And the kids that don't have any, which I don't think that may have had, there may be one or two once in a while, but or the people that have a few, then we reach out. Those are the red flags that we reach out to those kids.
That's great.
And we counsel them. We do a lot of career inventory stuff. There's a lot of we hear about the college stuff all the time because the vast majority of our kids are going to either
Right.
76% last year went to a 2-year college, and another
4-year.
4-year
76 to
college,
4-year,
and,
yeah.
and another 15% went to 2-year.
Yeah.
We have kids going to the military. The recruiters come in, and we work with another mechanism for identification as our career inventory that we give.
Okay.
So, again, most people are headed toward college, but we also try to help the other kids, and We have a school to career program that we try to bridge that gap with, and other things. So it's kind of a long answer, and you can get very
But
specific.
it feels to me like because the percentage is so small,
Yeah.
because you hear, 76% of the students are going on to college, it feels like, well, those are the students, sure, it's our biggest group, so we've got to meet their needs by having these programs. And I just can't help but think about
Yeah.
those little tiny percent of students. Is anybody paying attention?
Well, we try to pay attention to everybody, and those are some of the ways that we try to identify. And it's a small school, so
It's a benefit of being a
that's a
small
big
school
benefit
is that-
to
yes.
us. So,
And you have a school adjustment counselor, and, there are support staff and there are guidance
Right.
counselors, and each
Yeah.
guidance counselor has a caseload. So, I'm sure that they know which kids are still struggling to kind of
Yeah.
figure out what's gonna
Right.
happen for them. And a lot of kids graduate and they still don't know what's gonna happen,
yeah, I mean, that's true. I just more worry, I guess,
You don't want
my,
anybody to be invisible.
yes.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and I think if you want to be invisible at that age, there's really good ways to hide yourself.
Sure there are. Sure there are.
Are the guidance counselors required to take some of these outside? I'm calling them continuing ed for lack of a
they
better
have to
term.
maintain their license. They have to
They have to.
do professional development like we all do. Yeah.
Sometimes on PD days, there'll be sessions where let's say all the guidance and school adjustment counselors will get together and they'll work on a district-wide plan for programs for bullying prevention. Or they'll look at the district-wide K through 12 initiatives that affect all kids in our social curriculum areas. So
That's great.
they do that quite
Yeah,
a bit on the
yeah.
PD days too. So it's not always
They spent a
outside
lot of
doing-
time 2 years ago on the bullying curriculum.
and then youth risk behavior survey and
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah,
the results
yeah.
of that. So, and they don't really have time to get together often as a district, so it's a good opportunity on
Oh,
those
that's great.
days.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
their field is so broad that it's hard to, and there are so few of them, it's really not cost effective to bring in a provider to just
Sure.
work with them. We're better off, sending them off to various things, and that's what we do most of the time. There's all kinds of conferences out there. They're going all the time.
That's great.
And sometimes our own people provide internal, like Dr. Carr did some work on working with children with attention deficit disorder
Uh-huh.
in the classroom, and what are some strategies that,
That's great.
we could be using. So we do some of that too, and they can get professional development points for presenting as
yeah.
well.
That's
He's an
great.
excellent presenter and very well qualified.
That's great.
Been to some of his workshops.
That's great.
Is 76% attending four-year college? Is that considered a great statistic? Is that
It's considered a good statistic. I mean, when you add that to the two-year colleges, you end up in the 90, over 90% of the kids going on to further education. Some kids go to technical schools as well, and there's a lot of information now about people going to the trades, and the opportunities that are available to them are opening up.
And then a lot of those 2-year colleges, the community colleges, those kids will go from there to
Yeah,
state
they
school,
have-
so it'll
right.
end up being a 4-year
Right.
college.
Yes,
plan,
I think
even if it
that
doesn't start
I
out
just
that
had
way.
no I heard that today for the first time, that
Yeah.
stat, and I was
It's a
just
high
curious
number.
where it
Yeah.
falls in the whole.
Yes, and it varies from year to year, but it's always been, at least in the 6 years I've been here, over 90% of the students choose to go on to further education. But that, that's certainly, like you said, there are also children who choose to go to the world of work, and get right into the workforce, or military.
Well,
Try
there's so much critique of higher education out there,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just growing, and
Yes.
from what I'm watching.
Just wanna
So,
find the
Right.
right
Yeah.
path for each child, the best path for the individual child is
and
Okay,
the goal.
great.
All right, so,
thank you.
do I hear a motion to approve the mid-year school improvement plan for Georgetown High School as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Peter.
Peter.
Thank you very much.
So that takes care of administrative reports. Superintendent's information for the committee.
Brett, I just included some information that we received from the Merrimack Special Education Collaborative regarding a notification of an increase in their tuition. And I believe their tuition was going up 5%. For let's see,
Non-member
for
districts?
non-members. And tuition, we are not a member, as I understand it, of the Merrimack Special Education Collaborative, although we do have students who attend the collaborative, because that's always an option that we have. But my purpose in putting this in here for you is, you might have heard us discuss, Ann's mentioned several times, that we keep a close eye and watch on this, because, you know, we have had situations in the past, we budget 4% tuition increases for this purpose, for each of our students that's in and out of district placement, but, you know, we have had situations in the past where the state has approved tuition increases in some schools of 24%, 32% in 1 year. So we just like to keep the committee abreast of what, you know, what we're hearing about tuition increases. So it's really, that's why it's in under superintendent's information.
And so we budgeted for this increase, is that correct?
We budgeted 4%.
4%.
And it's going up 5%?
Well, as I look at it, we are a non-member, so yes, 5%.
Okay. And so how do you anticipate that impacting our budget?
Well, we have to take a look at the end of the day. We budgeted for what we understood to be the case, but we may have some changes
Sure.
before July 1. Maybe, you know, our transportation costs for a student might go down. You know, maybe a student may move, you know,
Right,
we don't know.
okay.
So we just keep abreast of
Sure,
it, and
okay.
we'll, if we have to make transfers, we
Right,
will.
a
We'll
moving
bring
target,
those to you.
right,
Yeah,
Appreciate the heads up.
you're welcome.
Okay, I don't think there are any financial reports.
No, there aren't.
All right, the subcommittee reports, budget and finance is, no report on that.
No? Okay.
Uh,
Just to mention maybe the FinCom meeting that's coming up.
Right, the
in
date
case
of that.
anybody from for the 20th.
That's the 20th of March?
It's the 20th of March. I don't know if, I know Ann's planning to be there. I'm just not sure if anyone else from the committee is planning to be there.
I am.
You're
Yes.
planning to come, Pam? Okay.
It was going to be posted as a meeting, so that
Yes,
more than
yes, yes.
could show up, so anybody can show up in that regard.
Yep.
Let's see, governance, I don't know if there was anything.
Governance, yes, we just met this week, and we are going to be meeting again on Tuesday the 19th at 12 o'clock. And we have been discussing head lice policy, acceptable use policy, the Baker-Adams application form, and a resolution protocol draft, Alana, that Carol came up with, which is excellent.
talked
but
about it a
we're-
little
that's-
today.
Yes, we're looking at that and going to be
Great.
suggesting
Yep.
what we need to before we show it to the committee.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to see it and
Great.
let us know what you think.
Great, thanks.
Negotiation subcommittee, who would that be?
Well, let's see. So we're working with the union, the teachers' union, on fine tuning the agreement for the teacher evaluation document. I think we're very, very close on that. The union actually is currently reviewing it in their Mike, what do you call that? Your executive team? No,
Yeah, it's the
executive board. Yeah,
negotiation team.
negotiation team. And you know, Joe asked me to look into a couple other things, so I think we've got just a little bit more work on that. But then hopefully we're going to be able to bring that before the committee in April. And then we're establishing I guess you'd call it an advisory committee that's going to be comprised of staff as well as administration. And that committee will really oversee the implementation of it. So we'll make decisions about how we're going to train people, you know, the logistics of how to, you know, what are we going to do about district agreed upon assessments, a number of things that just need to be worked out, that don't need to hold up the negotiations process, but need to be done. So we'll be working on that. And then in terms of the GISA, we're really close on that as well. In fact, right now we're working on some job descriptions, and once the job descriptions are in the shape we like, I think we're ready to bring it forward for ratification to both unions. Been a very positive process, and you know, I think it's always good to hear what kinds of things the staff has as interests, and for them to have a chance to hear what we have to consider, and I think the end result is going to be positive
Great,
for everybody.
that's great.
Great.
Excellent. Public relations.
Public relations, we have not had a meeting in quite a while, but we do have one planned for Friday, the 22nd at 8:30 a.m.
Very good.
Look forward to it.
Safety.
We just had a safety meeting this morning, actually. And we discussed bus evacuation drills, which are going very well, so that the students know what to do if there was ever an emergency on a bus. And the school liaison officer position, which is also going very well.
Yes, there was actually it was very nice to hear from the site administrators about, their feelings about how having the liaison officer, even though there are three of them, they're all great, and what they've seen as the positives to that. I think that's very compelling when you hear it from them, as opposed to myself or the chief of police, who obviously believe in it. The chief actually said that in his budget presentations, he's been talking with the appropriate people about the possibility of maybe reinstating, getting money to reinstate, a single school resource officer. Obviously that's in the process, and we don't have any resolution to whether that will happen or not happen. But I did offer the services, and I think they were thinking maybe Guy would be a good person to talk if there was anybody, who was trying to make the decision, who wondered, well, what is the benefit to it, and is it something that we really need? And obviously, I think talking to someone who uses the service every day is always a good idea, and maybe even talking to a couple of kids. I don't know. Do you have anything to add on that, Cole? I mean, what's your sense of how people perceive the officer in the school?
Well, I mean, all they know is that he's just there. He's there for their safety. I mean, and they understand, especially events like Sandy Hook, stuff like that. They know that it's safety, that he's there. I mean, I don't think he's threatening. He's just there. I know he stands at the lunches and he just watches the kids, and people respect him. The only thing is, no one really talks to him. He just sits there, stands. I mean,
The elementary school, it's a little different, right? They get excited when they see him come.
But I mean, just in my personal opinion, I'm glad that we have someone there, and I think it adds a level of comfort to the kids that are there, just to know that there's someone there to protect them. So,
Would there be anything that could help engage the student body with the police officer?
Well, I think that in the past that has happened more. I think we just reinstated it within the last month or so. I know when Jim Rodden did it, and actually when Derek Jones did it, I mean, they actually did some teaching. They really, especially Jim Rodden, I think, when we had him in the district, remember, we had him for multiple years. I think he was there for 3 or 4 anyway.
yeah,
3,
no,
I
and
think 3.
I remember him just interacting more with the students,
Yeah.
and I know he'd come into classes, maybe give
Yeah.
just a short presentation of what he does and why he's there, which would be, I mean, I'd love that, and
Yeah.
I know students would like that too, just to know,
Yeah.
what's going on.
Right.
Well, and
So-
Detective Rodden has been a certified high school teacher
Teacher,
for 12
yeah,
years,
yeah.
so.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he
So
started
he
out as a
really,
teacher.
he
I didn't know
knows high
that.
school
Yes.
students, he
Oh,
likes,
cool.
he loves high school students, so.
But I
didn't know that.
and I
That's
think,
great.
it's like anything else, right? Forming relationships happens over time. And I think, when it was one single individual that was there basically 5 days a week, it's a little easier to develop those relationships.
So this person's changing?
Well,
not
right
the
now,
same
right now,
That's
what's been
part of the
funded
problem,
right
part of
now,
that
and
issue.
through a negotiation with the teacher, with the union, the chief has been able to work it out, so there are 3 officers. So there's Detective Sullivan, Officer Sullivan, Detective Rodden, and Officer Godot, right? Godot. And they go on a rotating basis. So there's like 2 days, one of them's in there, the next 2 days another one, and they rotate. So it's a little harder to form those relationships, but I think, the goal was to provide that comfort, that sense of safety,
Yeah.
and that is definitely something that people are reflecting that it's occurring. So what would be great in the long run is if we could figure out a way to go back to the model of the school resource officer, one single individual trained who can be in the schools and interacting a little bit more. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really, yeah.
But
Okay.
this is great, and we're grateful for the funding, for till June.
Okay. School Building Committee. We met March 12th. The two items worth noting, the project, as we're now into construction documents, is on budget. It's about $150,000 off of the actual number, so it's doing excellent as far as the budget is concerned at this point in time. And the project was voted on to have it go in front of the planning board for their review and approval through their process. It was a great discussion about that, and it was good to see that. It was a good discussion for all. So those are the two items that probably are highlights, and the rest is scheduling. And we just met. I went through the scheduling before.
Tuesday.
Not that long ago.
We met Tuesday.
So, but I guess construction documents, briefly highlighted. Construction documents, we're in it now, that phase. And they're to be completed this August. And then there's 1 month of bidding, which is September. And then construction is supposed to begin November 2013 this year. It's amazing. And then occupying the new building, September 2015. And then for the school building committee, we have the next meeting is scheduled for April 9th, which is a Tuesday. And as far as the middle high school is concerned, nothing has changed there. They're still in the schematic design phase, which ends this December. And then it goes to the MSBA for their approval in January of 2014. Town vote comes before the town May 2014 for the middle high school. And then, assuming it's approved, go into construction documents May through December 2014. Bidding 1 month, 2 months, and construction start for the high school renovations March 2015, with a substantial completion August 2015. So the completion date's actually September and August of 2015 for both projects. That's going to be an interesting transition time for the schools.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot going on.
And we'll have to really coordinate that
Yeah.
really very well, because there are some renovations to the middle high school that can't be done until the sixth grade vacates.
Right.
But there are other things perhaps that could be done over the course of a number of years. So Rob's got those dates from a document that was produced by the OPM, and I've asked Laura to put it in your packet for both of those projects for the next meeting. So you'll be able to look, it's like a Gantt chart, and you'll be able to see it visually. Ambitious.
So that
It is.
those are the
Sounds-
subcommittees. Old business.
Yep.
Baker Adams criteria discussion, and Carol, maybe I'll.
Yeah, okay. Well, the committee at their last meeting kind of remanded this back to governance. So Barbie, Pam, and I, as she said, met recently. One of the things we reviewed the application. And tonight, we weren't able to reach a resolution in terms of a recommendation that would come forward to you. I did speak with Anne, who wasn't able to be here tonight. And her perspective was she would prefer not to see a lot of things changed on the document, the application, because her feeling is that we don't want to be in a position where we're making some assumptions, like the financial need. She's a little nervous if we collect some of the information we talked about, that it may drive assumptions that we don't have enough information with which to make. She was also a little bit worried about, prioritizing or weighting the criteria, because she feels that it would be difficult then to make sure that everybody considered the total picture. If we were too focused on, like, let's say the community service / essay, and that was 50%,
The application says the criteria will be equally.
Yes, it does, but one of the things we were talking about was, we were asked to do is to take a look at whether or not we would want to recommend any changes to that.
The goal is to stay within the spirit of what Baker Adams wanted.
Absolutely.
In the reading of his will and his biography, and we just want to make absolutely sure that the application reflects that he would be pleased with that application.
Absolutely.
My take on the way it went last year was that it went well. and the vitality of the subjectivity of everybody, and you know, that was where the life of it seemed to come from, and,
Right.
and I thought that was pretty great. I think the problem was we only had one meeting, and it was really rushed and pinched, and if there was one more meeting, that would I think help an awful lot.
Yeah, this year we talked about
Yeah, we
actually
talked
having a
about that.
specific meeting.
Yeah.
You know, where we didn't have another meeting on the other side of it. And then the other thing, I think Barbie made a good point when we were talking about, you know, it's numerical in order to be fair to everybody, you know, because we don't want it to be, oh, I know Cole, he's a great kid, you know, he's getting a scholarship. You know, his application has to, you know, be based on merit. So we obviously number them so that there's a little bit of objectivity, and then it's numerical in terms of the point totals. There was a kind of a confusion last year in that spreadsheet. In fact, it wasn't correct the first time, and so it was very confusing. I think when we started, if people were
Yes.
trying to make it numerical to some extent, we're operating from the actual numbers, so I think we can make improvements on that as well.
Right, just to make sure there's no person, there's
I know
no-
I wasn't,
no
I'm
bias.
sorry I didn't have any suggestions to submit to the committee when you were discussing this, but
Yeah.
it occurs to me now that, is it possible for somebody, when these are submitted, to number, before they're photocopied for us, to number all the applications, to make a master list that associates a number with the name of the student, and then when we receive the application, to have the student's name removed, so that we don't actually know whose application we are looking at. We are only looking at what they report.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Because I actually, I was troubled. I mean, we reviewed these. It was one of my earliest first meetings,
it was.
perhaps the very first meeting. And there was repeatedly, people said, well, I know this family,
Yeah,
or I
yeah,
know this.
yeah.
And that troubled me so deeply, because I didn't know anyone. And so I knew I was only looking
The
at
criteria.
what was being presented to me. And I think if we could do, you know, if they could all be anonymous to all of us,
I think that's a
and
great
you might
idea.
have a suspicion about who they are based on the activities or something that you see, but to have the student's name removed might make it a little bit more objective for all of us.
I think that's an excellent idea.
That's a, yeah.
I agree.
That's a good thought.
you know, it takes away that whole bias. Even though you're trying to be very unbiased when choosing, having the knowledge of the person and having even just a subconscious judgment of them can affect your ruling on
Absolutely.
Right. No, that's,
you know,
and we do,
gets it
yes, we
started.
do
It
want
also-
to remove that bias. You're
It
you're
also
right. That's-
lends a little credibility to people who might be concerned that we are biased, or why didn't this happen this way, and
Sure,
I think
that's not a problem.
Great. I know it adds a little bit more.
No, I think
Laura, I'm
that-
assuming you're the one doing that.
I
I'm
don't think
sorry
it's a
to
problem,
add
right,
to your
Laura?
workload, but if you, any,
A little bit of white out in the spreadsheet.
yep, that's all I'm
So,
asking for.
so I think having the single date to do it, you know, sufficient time, having, you know, some kind of a tally sheet that everybody
Uses the
submits
same-
the same way.
Yes,
And that would help, and then this removal of the names.
yes.
Can I just ask Cole, were you able to talk to any students? And
Yeah, I was. I brought it up to
feedback?
Yeah, I brought it up to my student council, and we read through the application, and I mean, the first sections 1 through 3 are pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just name, address, then it's family information, academic information. So we found that really wasn't hard to grasp, as in, like, you know, exactly what's needed. When it comes to section 4 and 5, I know we talked about, and I know what you just said, how she doesn't want to put an emphasis on one part. From what I understood from the last meeting is she did want to, or you guys did want to put an emphasis on community service.
Okay.
So, in that case, if from Anne's recommendation, previously, and from your recommendation previously, I brought it up, like, this is what they really want community service to be, kind of shine through, and how maybe students didn't really understand that, and I had them read through and see what jumps out at you as the most important thing, and it was various answers. Sometimes it was the first one on the list, like, volunteer work. That was the first thing on the list for section 4, and list in order of importance. So I was like, well, that's good, because that's really what they were looking for. But then when it comes to the essay, explain how your leadership, participation in social activities, academic accomplishments, and volunteer efforts. They didn't really find volunteer efforts to be the focal point of the essay, which is, I mean, if you guys don't want that, then that's great, because you want it to be equally prioritized in the sense that you don't want one thing to be outweigh the others if you're doing something else. But in my opinion, I found that it was definitely criteria. I didn't find it like, oh, I don't have to put in volunteer work. It's not needed. Like, I found it important from the list that was given and from the essay. So, and so did my student council.
But it sounds
So-
like maybe it didn't jump out at you
No.
and those, but that volunteer and community service, which is what I thought was going to happen. And that's actually important feedback because, you know, I think the spirit of the people, because we don't have the history. Anne has a little history because she's been on the committee for a while, and she said there have been various discussions and iterations, like, you know, should sports be considered a community activity? You know, it's not really, you know, it's not really community service. But then again, you know, some kids are so busy with school and sports that they don't have a lot of time to do things within their community, but yet they're giving back to their school by participating on a sports team. So I think Anne's perspective is that her sense is that because there was nothing specified in Baker Adams' will, that it should be about community service. We're making the judgment that he was a guy who cared about community because he did so many things within the community. But, you know, he just really wanted to make sure that deserving students had the opportunity to further their education. So if it looks like what it says right now is that all of those things are important, and it's your job as a student to sort of show how well-rounded you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why the community service thing isn't highlighted in
Well,
a different way.
But we talked about how it's really important for students, we think, to read his biography and really show us your sense of, I mean, when I read his biography, I see community service just comes right out there. That's his big.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I also
he might not
think,
use those terms.
but he was an
but
attorney, and means
he
education.
might.
So
I don't, but
is it possible in future years, I mean, it sounds like this is a discussion we could have
Right.
that could
after
go.
we award, you know, at this point, this application has gone out to the students. So we need to
We'll have to
award the
change it now.
scholarship
Yeah.
based on what the application is asking for, the way the students are understanding it, which is that anything in this list here, they can use, and it can count, and we need to weigh it equally.
As
That's right.
For next
Reevaluate.
year,
yes,
we can either say the committee believes that, you know,
we can
say
reword it.
we can reword it just to say, read Baker Adams' biography, and what do you believe he would value in what you have done? How would you be worthy, you know? We could say it that way, or we could say, we understand Baker Adams from his biography to be someone who valued community service. You know, how, I think just the prompt, it's how we ask for
Yes.
how we ask for it, we could
I agree.
change.
And that's what we
And we
did-
could get rid
that's
of the
what we
subject verb
discussed.
agreement problem.
No.
Governance.
But
Was this
honestly,
even up?
education was important to him too, because
Yeah.
if you see here,
Yes.
you know, he says it was a high priority, and it sounded like financial need was as well, because he was willing to give breaks to people on some of the things that he did with the community. So
crafting that prompt is a whole, I mean, that's,
Well, and those are those
That's-
2/4 of what's important. That's,
we
Was
could
this
pull the
actually
English
given out
department
yet?
in because
Was
they're.
this
I
actually?
think it's available in this guidance office, but I don't know that any of the scholarship things are been distributed.
Okay.
Peter, have the scholarship things been distributed yet? They're when did they get?
April
When
1st
does-
is,
has
I'm
the
pretty
Baker
sure,
Adams
when
application
everyone gets
been
them.
distributed yet?
We try to move the timeline up, so normally not until for about a month, but I'm not sure what the new timeline is.
So like sometime in
If I'm
April.
not, if I'm not mistaken, it is April 1st.
It is
That's when we
April
get
1st. That
all
does
of the
sound right,
scholarships.
Cole.
That's what I
Okay.
understand from the
Good.
guidance department.
That does
But-
sound right.
Good.
So I mean, if you wanted to make an adjustment now, I'm pretty sure you're still able to.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, good.
But when I read Baker Adams' scholarship, that's exactly what I got from it. He was a community man. He really
Yeah.
emphasized
He
putting
valued his
your
community.
time and effort into the community. But I know, as a student who has a lot of other things to do, they're not always going to read the biography. They're just going to go straight to, all right, what do I need to do? All right, fill this out. Okay. Yep,
Well,
read the
unless
poem.
it says, when it says, read Baker Adams' biography.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
based on you can instruct the students to do that.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
it would make it more clear that you want it based on what Baker Adams wants. And if they read it, they will get a more focused interpretation. Like within all the students, it'll be a more focused interpretation of what he wants, instead of kids who don't read it and just kind of write about, okay, leadership. Yeah, okay. So leadership, participation in social activities, academic accomplishments, and volunteer efforts. They might not put the volunteer effort as a big part. They might be like, yeah, so I did some community service over the summer.
Well-
And that's the only time they really mention it. So putting that, read the biography, and,
Write an essay explaining how you would be deserving
Yes.
in Baker Adams' eyes.
I think the tricky thing about this is, when this was done, Donnie Cudmore did a lot of work on this. When the money became available, he went and he spoke to community members and family and friends, and he put this together. So it's difficult for us because we didn't participate in that process. We didn't talk to anybody. So we would be supposing, based on what we're reading that someone else wrote, what Baker Adams cared about.
Yes.
That's why I'm a little reluctant to change the scope of this, because it was developed by people who really did some solid research on, what he valued. So, whether we weight it differently or not makes sense to me, but I would hate to see us not keep the same criteria, because again, it was developed as a result of some research that was done, clarifying the prompt and, doing that kind of stuff. That makes sense to me, but I think the criteria should be considered, because we may have somebody who worked really hard academically, and if the focus is on community service, but because of their work in their school, but not necessarily within their community, they might not fare as well. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that
So
was
I
that
think
was
I like
certainly
the openness of the options.
I mean, I'm glad that we're just re-evaluating and looking at it again with fresh eyes. I mean, I agree. The original work that was done on this is certainly excellent and done by people who put a lot of hard time and effort into it. But just, based on the responses that we've seen, and I've only had 1 year experience with this, but, maybe over the years, when you see, the results, the essays that students are writing, just think about, is this what Baker Adams had in mind? Just
I don't know
continue
Baker Adams,
to.
so I don't know that. I
Right.
think if we go back, though, just to keep a context, because I know we don't want to spend a lot of time on this discussion, the reason we're having this discussion is because there were some things about the process last year that didn't work. Not necessarily the application didn't work. There were things about the process that didn't work. So that's what I think our reason for bringing it forward and bringing it up was to think about, is the problem that we didn't know what the criteria was? Is the problem that it should have been weighted differently? Or is it that we didn't have enough time? That it was a brand new committee, most of which had never been through the process before. The data was skewed or incorrect at best. I'm wondering if it does make sense for us this year to try this again.
Yes.
And see if the changes we're making to the process iron some of these things out,
Absolutely.
rather than embracing it as like a massive change we need to do right now.
I think another meeting is gonna make a big difference.
I would just like to take this back to governance, because I just felt like in the application, particularly in the financial section, there was very inconsistent information. And
That is true.
it's all confidential. I mean, it all gets shredded afterwards. It's none of our business, except that we're supposed to be evaluating this, and if the information is different.
I'm happy to discuss it, but I think I wish Ann were here, because I think Ann she was very clear and persuasive to me as to why you wouldn't want to know some of the information that we were asking for. Because there are
But I
some
just want
assumptions that you can make.
consistent
when you s-
information,
And that's the consistent information, and she said that's gone back and forth. You know, we had George Mocher, we had and other financial people on it. And they said, based on their recommendations, this is the essential information, because if you have too much information, that we don't really have all of the information,
The question
it does
is-
lead you
I
into.
do think the question is, how does the committee, given this information, let's just, I'm happy to go forward with the assumption that this is all the information we need, this is the exact amount of information we need. How do we weight it?
That's right.
That's the
Well,
question.
and what
We need
this
a
says is you're
formula.
weighting it equally.
No,
Okay.
I don't think you understand what I mean. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of information here that we're asking for in regard to financial information.
Yeah.
So, for instance, we had, I'll throw some numbers out. Last year, we might have had a student whose annual tuition for their first institution was going to be $50,000 a year, and another student whose tuition for their first choice institution was going to be $80,000.
Yes.
Okay? And then we got the anticipated aid, anticipated scholarships. So then we looked at what their unmet financial obligation, and do we decide that we give the greatest weight? This was a question we had last year. Does the greatest weight go to the student with whose number there is the highest? Or does it go to the student who, you know, and this is where knowing the students got really uncomfortable for me, that some people knew, oh, well, this student's unmet financial obligation is going to be $50,000, but they don't have any siblings, and we know the dad's got a really good job, and it's not going to be a problem for them. That was the kind of conversations we were having here, versus a student who their unmet financial obligation is maybe only $5,000, but because of what they wrote in their essay, we were able to discern that that $5,000 was going to present a tremendous hardship to the family. And so we were stuck. Well, this person is going to pay $50,000 out of pocket, but because we know the family, we think they can afford it. This person has told us they've got siblings with medical needs that are driving their family into poverty and an unemployed father. And even though their unmet need is $5,000, if this student doesn't get that $5,000 from someplace, they may just have to kiss college goodbye. We were having those kinds of conversations. We didn't know.
And the
We
problem
didn't have
is,
a policy.
even if you had more information, you're still not gonna know. It just throws more things in.
We can,
I
I'm saying can we set perhaps some guidelines for how, if we have 5 sections here that we're considering, so let's say each section is going to be worth 10 points, okay? And the overall, so a student could earn potentially 50 points for a perfect application, we'll say. And we're going to give money to all the students who we score, say, between 45 and 50. We're going to divide up that money somehow. Let's say we had a formula like that. So 10 points for the essay, kind of easy to come up with scoring. 10 points for community information. Is it going to be like 1 point for being involved in a sport, but 3
See,
points for
you-
being
and
in
you
the
can't-
key club?
you can't do
How
that.
are we going to do that?
You can't do that, and that's why that's why I want you to see what how the process works again, because it's never been a problem in the past. Last year, for whatever reason, the process didn't work smoothly. So again, we don't know which variable or which variables was the reason for that. What usually happens, I've seen it with different committee members. Some people will set up a very numerical system for
Right.
themselves, and others will not. But somehow, at the end of the day, the people who emerge as the 10 top kids that get the total points ended up being the top kids that everybody agreed on. They may not have agreed which place they fell in the top 10.
But last year
But-
we didn't. That didn't happen.
That
and you're
didn't
saying
happen.
that was an anomaly
I'm
based on
thinking
that class.
in my 6 years here,
Okay.
it's an anomaly.
Okay.
I don't know whether it, again, I went through the factors it could be. So I guess what I'm lobbying for is that perhaps we try it one more year. Try to clean up the variables, and then because you'll have been through it more than 1 year, then you might be able to,
Okay.
after fact, say, let's reflect on this. You know, what process did people use? You know, do we want to have something a
Okay.
little more standardized? Right. I mean,
Oh,
you know,
if
when
that's-
context is important
I'm-
when you
I'm
try
thinking-
it a couple of times, right?
Absolutely. But I do think,
That makes
you know,
sense. That
and I'm
makes
glad
sense,
that
yeah.
everyone's in agreement that removing the applicant's name.
Yeah, I think that
The
might
more
make
I- the
another,
more
that
I
might be
think
another
about it,
variable.
The better that sounds. Yes.
So let's do that. Let's do that.
And there's numerous places, it's not just the name,
Yeah.
but there's the name of the father and the name of the mother, like all of that. Any names in the essay, that all has to be,
Yeah, we can do that.
I think that,
So,
that would
I
make
mean,
me
that's what
more
I would
comfortable.
suggest you think about is let's go for it. Let's check the process out again, and then let's reflect right after the process, because you will all have gone through it now 2
Indeed.
times.
Well, we'll have a new person at the point that we're doing this.
That's true.
We'll
So you'll
have a
have
new
one more
committee
person.
member.
But you won't have the majority of people. You'll have at least been through it
Yes.
2 times and maybe even 3.
Okay.
You know, actually no, just 2, 1 and 2. Right.
So,
You've all been through it.
We've been through it
All been
once.
through it once, and Rob, you've been through it twice.
And Barbie will have been through it twice.
Correct.
So this will be the third time. for
and I would
okay.
say that the first time I went through it, it was definitely smoother.
Okay, that's
It,
interesting.
Okay, well, good. Let's, I mean,
And then-
now, so we don't need to go back to governance, although we can certainly
I just
talk
have one
about
more
it.
question. I'm sorry to be like so anal about this.
that's right.
Is this a document that's on your computer somewhere, Laura? That you there is a subject verb agreement error in the prompt.
So just send us a little note about that.
Okay.
So we want those kind of, if
High
we're
school
asking the children
graduates
to
of-
be,
yes.
to be grammatically correct, and
we ought to
we should be as well, I agree. Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
No vote required on that.
No vote
Okay,
required.
great.
So then we will move
Thank you,
on
Cole,
to.
for checking on that, I appreciate
thank
that.
Of course, definitely.
Feedback.
Yeah, well, I'm glad, that I could help or just assist in any way, because when it comes down to it, it's the students.
That's
It's
right.
important, and
We
it is
agree.
important.
We agree.
New business, acceptance of Pearly
Okay.
donation. So the Georgetown PTA has generously donated $132 to the Pearly School as a result of a recent author's book sale. And do we hear a motion to accept the $132 PTA donation with gratitude as presented? And do we name who these are from?
Sometimes
It's
we
not
do,
clear.
sometimes they don't want us to, so
Don't,
we don't. Was
Didn't-
this
I didn't want
an
to if they don't.
anonymous one, or,
This is just from the PTA. It's
okay,
from
from the
okay,
PTA
that's
as an
PTA, but the other
organization.
one's coming, okay.
So the signature
They're
probably
both on.
represents the treasurer or something.
So the motion is to accept, need a motion to accept the $132 PTA donation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, PTA.
Thank you,
Yes.
PTA.
And we have a second reading of the International Student Exchange Policy.
And we will want to vote on this.
And that one is a vote, correct. So, everybody had that in the packet from before. So we're looking for a motion to approve the new policy, file JS, International Student Exchange Policy as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Can I ask a question before I second? Or
Second, and then discussion.
second. Yeah, second. And then the discussion.
Okay, any discussion?
So, if I, as a member of the Georgetown community, am considering hosting an international student, exchange student, before I move forward with my intention, I need to check with the schools? Is that the intention here? Or do most international exchange programs have a vehicle for ensuring that there will be a place in the public school before they send you that student? How does that
Well, it
work?
depends on the organization. It depends on the organization. Peter's had a little experience with this recently, and usually our experience has been with an organization.
Okay.
So they will, they have a process. They will come and check and see whether or not there's availability of spots.
Okay.
They will get the host family. They will oversee the process. They will connect with the school. And then we had a situation where there was not an organization we were familiar with.
Okay.
That wanted to do this. So we contacted actually our attorney just to make sure that, because we didn't have a policy on it, just
Okay.
to see, what's in everybody's best interest here. And as a result, she put us in the direction of a model policy, which
I
we
see.
have taken and done some adapting to. But we think it is important to have guidelines. So.
Oh, I agree.
you
I
know,
just want to make sure that this is probably something, I'm glad to know this because it's my family's intention at some point to host an international exchange student.
We want them
so
to
we
go
want-
through an agency,
Okay,
as opposed to someone saying, well, you know, I think I want to go and find a French student to come
Right,
live in.
right.
We would like them to go through an agency, and then we'd like to have this set of guidelines followed. And we'll
Great.
do everything we can to accommodate. But, you know, does need to be some agreement or understanding of, you know, we want the child to succeed.
absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely.
so we don't wanna be in a situation where, you know, they speak nothing of the language, they're socially having difficulty, or they've had issues with the law in their home country.
Yes.
Right, I
We-
mean,
we
you
don't
know,
want
I
that
mean, I
student in our
hate to, you know, say
Role
that,
model
but,
for my
you know,
daughter.
most of the time, but through these agencies, we have found that
Yes.
they fully vet those kind of things.
Yes,
and,
absolutely, yes.
You know, and we love having exchange students. They enrich the community overall. I mean, there was one student that came in and she was on the cross-country team. I went to the cross-country banquet and it was just, she just fit so right in, and, you know, just, it was awesome.
This is Jen.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on both sides of it. And Peter, you've had really good experiences with foreign exchange students, right?
Always, yeah.
Yeah, so it's something we like to encourage, but we also just want to make sure we do have
Have
some
a policy.
guidelines.
Sure.
Because we have had more inquiries than, more have been popping up, I think, in
Well,
the
it's just
last
good
couple
to
of
know.
years.
I think I haven't begun the exploration of the process, but then I see there's a I hadn't probably thought it through well enough to think, oh, gosh, just assumed they would go to Georgetown Public School. This is my kid for a year, you know. So.
Yeah.
So,
But there does need to be, we'd like to
Yes,
have these guidelines put in
absolutely.
place. And then
Okay.
there won't be a lot of confusion.
That's great. It's very reassuring, actually, to know there's.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, all those in favor? Aye. All set. And we do not have executive
not.
session.
We do not?
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
This meeting, motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second?
Second one, second.
Any discussion, no discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everyone.